every day I get to live out my values, and I have pretty basic values, kindness, mercy, being a good steward of the planet. And so I get to, every day that I eat this way, I get to sort of practice what internally makes me feel good. So there's a contentedness that I have that I never experienced before.
Season 3 of the Plant Strong podcast explores those Galileo moments where you seek to understand the real truth around your health and dare to see the world through a different lens. This season, we honor those courageous seekers who are paving the way for you and me. So grab your telescope, point it towards your future, and let's get plant strong together. Welcome to another episode of the Plant Strong podcast. I'm your host, Rip Esselstyn. If there's one person who has put a face on the vegan lifestyle, it would have to be today's guest, Kathy Freston. Kathy has written 9 books, including the popular Veganist, The Lean, and Clean Protein, among many of them. And she's been an outspoken plant-based proponent in the mainstream media for many years, including popular appearances on the iconic Oprah show, Ellen, Good Morning America, and The View, just to name a few. Her new book, written with last week's guest, Gene Stone, is called 72 Reasons to Be Vegan. And we continue this conversation in her usual approachable and attainable way. And that's what I love about Kathy. Her philosophy is progress over perfection because, let's face it, no one is perfect, and we're all on a journey towards making ourselves better humans. You'll hear this sentiment in spades when she shares her own moment of personal truth and evolution. And if any of you have ever had a pet, I think you'll be able to relate. If you haven't met Kathy before, I know you'll respect her honesty and passion. 72 Reasons is an extension of the work that she's been doing for years, and judging by her enthusiasm and her inner and outer beauty, she won't be stopping anytime soon. Welcome, Kathy Freston. Kathy Freston, it is so good to see you. It's been a couple of years. You have some exciting stuff going on right now, but before we talk about the new book that you just came out with just a couple of days ago, I want to take a step back for a sec and talk about, first, you have been an icon in the vegan plant-based movement for a long time right now. And a lot of the people that are coming up now pushing plants, I think it's fair to say are standing on your shoulders. And just want to appreciate you for everything that you've done, because it is quite a commitment, right? I mean, if I'm not mistaken, Kathy, and correct me if I'm wrong, you have written 7 books? Is this your 7th?
9th.
9th. Oh my goodness gracious. So have you always loved to write? Is this something that
I've always loved to write? And it's funny, Rip, because I was thinking about it. I was like, at this point, I don't know what else. This is what I know how to do. I just know how to write. So I think, it'd be such an exciting time to be an entrepreneur in the plant-based world, and like yourself, and create a company. And I'm like, you know what? The truth is, I know how to write. It's what I love doing. I'm an introvert, so I get to be at home and do all my research and think about stuff. And it's just kind of what I do, Yeah. But I write.
Yeah. Well, you and I, the first time we met was you were doing the red carpet interviews at the Forks Over Knives premiere in LA.
That's right. For Ellen.
Yeah. And my father and I came down and you interviewed us, and that was it was really an honor for me to meet you that first time. The second time was in Fremont. We were both doing the TED Talks there.
Yes, that's right.
That Anil Gadhani had put together. And
Yeah.
we were in the back room afterwards. And I came up to you and we were talking. And I was like, you got to meet this guy, Gene Stone, right? He's helped me with some of my books. He's this great guy. And so I don't know if you remember or not, but I connected you two and you guys met. I think it was in New York, maybe a couple months later.
That's right. Yeah. And then we got along like a house on fire. And we never worked together until now, but we got along so well. I remember we met, I think it was at an Indian restaurant, and we just sat down, and you know, those instantaneous friendships, it's just like, I'm going to tell you my deepest secrets. And we would just talked and talked and talked. And he became one of my very best friends and is to this day. So thank you for that.
Oh yeah. Well, and look what's come of it. You guys wrote this spectacular book, right? 72 reasons to be vegan. Why plant-based? Period. Why now? Period. Not question marks, period.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Exactly.
And then we also talked about cooking and pots and pans, and you had some extra pots and pans, and you were so
nice. Gosh, that's right. I had like this whole set that somebody gave me that I wasn't going to, because my kitchen was only so big. Yeah. And you're like, I could use a new set. Yeah, that's right.
Well, and there's so many times that you have that conversation and somebody says, oh yeah, I'll mail those to you. And they never mail them. And literally like a week later, there they were from Kathy Freston. I'm like, oh my gosh, what an angel. Absolute angel.
I love it. I love it when all the good stuff comes around, it's just, you took care of me, introduced me to Gene, and, just run into each other. And it's kind of wonderful. Well, our community is pretty great.
It goes back to one of your books, Expect a Miracle, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
2004, you wrote that, something like that?
Yeah. I'm a very different person than I was when I wrote that book, but, because back then, I don't know, it was a very sort of, very spiritual book, I guess, about relationships and everything. But I love the sentiment of expecting a miracle, just expect something crazy, wonderful to come out of the blue, and, prepare yourself for it, because why not? And then something happens. You wake up one day and your life is different.
Now, I haven't read that book, but tell me this, because Expect a Miracle, I like it. But to me, you also have to you have to do something to make that miracle happen. You can't just sit on your ass.
Totally. So it's like, expect a miracle, basically put your intention out, and then become the person who could show up for something great happening. So work on yourself. That's exactly the whole point of the thing. It's like, we can't just sit here and like imagine something. I imagine I'm going to have, a red Corvette or whatever. It's just like, set your intention, but then do the work to become the person who, when you meet that potential in the road, you're ready for it.
And I mean, look at you. I mean, you have gotten miracles. Look you've written now, 9 books, right? Mm-hmm. And with each book, I'm sure you put it out into the universe, and it gives back to you, right? In some
really
way,
does.
It really does.
Yeah, it really does.
And there's a certain amount, as you and I both know, of vulnerability and putting something that you've worked so hard out there.
Well, I tell you, that's a big thing for me, because, it's as someone who's more introverted, the big part of the book is promotion and getting out there and talking about it. And it's like a baby. Like, I really want it. I want this baby to do well. I want this baby to thrive in life, So you are vulnerable. It's like, this is the work that I spent the last year doing, and I really hope you like it. I really hope it connects,
Well, and like, for example, when you wrote Quantum Wellness, right? Mm-hmm. And then you tell me if this is right, but you put it out there, and I think a miracle happened. You got on Oprah, and then Oprah and her whole staff decided to do your Quantum Wellness program, 30-day program.
Yeah, the cleanse.
Yeah. I mean, did you ever see that coming from, or did it just?
No, absolutely not. So my publisher just called and called and called. So, it's not really a miracle like it came out of the blue. He was calling, calling. And I guess he put on enough pressure, but God bless her, she had me on. And the thing was, she had like a whole slew of producers, and they said, whatever you do not talk about the vegan stuff.
Yeah.
Because the book Quantum Wellness was about a lot of things. It was about, relationships and, meditation and doing a cleanse, which happened to be vegan and all of this stuff. But some of it was about the ethics of eating animal foods. And she had been sued by the meat industry for saying something as bland as, oh, I'm never going to eat another burger again. And so they came after her. And I think she spent probably a year in court fighting the meat industry because they said that she libeled them. And so she ended up winning and she came out victorious, but I think it was probably pretty traumatizing. I mean, she had to be, I think it was in Texas, wasn't it?
Oh, it was. It was the Texas Cattlemen's, I think, Association.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
So she had to spend a lot of time in Texas, which I'm sure that part was great, but you're away from home and all of that stuff. So her producers were like, we don't want her, she doesn't want to go near that conversation. So I was prepared to talk about meditation and relationships and all of that stuff. I was not going to breathe a word. It's like, Oprah doesn't want you to talk about something, you're not going to talk about something. And then Oprah being Oprah, first we did a radio show. So she had a radio show. So I arrived, and the night before we did the radio show, and then the next day we taped the TV show. So I did the radio show first, and I'm like ready to talk, and she zeroes right in on, so tell me what's wrong with eating eggs. And I was like, look, is it really cruel? Are eggs really cruel? And I was like, okay, Oprah's asking me this stuff, so I'm going to show up. And I really had no idea that this was going to be. And then she, got super excited about the whole thing. And on the TV show, she wanted to do the cleanse. And then people followed along for 30 days. And, it was one of those things that just took off. And that sort of changed the course of my writing, because I really became someone who was much more writing about veganism and plant-based foods.
Right. And then your next book was Veganish.
Yeah.
And then Clean Protein.
Yeah.
Which is so, fantastic that people, people just don't understand that the cleanest, best, strongest protein comes from plants.
It's the best. And I love the way that you talk about it as an athlete, as a dude that wants to be strong. It's like, no, this is like plant. I love the way you say plant strong, because it's just, this stuff makes you. I just did an interview actually right before this, and the guy interviewing me, I think he was probably an older gentleman, and he said, I kind of worry about going vegan because I worry about not having enough energy, and that I'm going to lose muscle tone and everything. And I was like, oh my God, have you seen the athletes? I mean, they're world famous athletes, and people such as yourself just rocking this lifestyle and showing that you have so much more energy. It's just the opposite of what people used to think even 20 years ago. People were thinking it was like, very wimpy diet. And it's just like, no, the super athletes in the world are eating this way because it is so powerful.
Yeah. So season 3 of the Plant Strong podcast, we're kind of diving into understanding people like yourself, or scientists or doctors. And what was their kind of Galileo moment or their aha moment where they were like, you know what? I can't eat animals any longer. I can't do dairy. I mean, plants somehow appeared before you, and the truth was unveiled, and it changed your kind of your trajectory, right? Yeah. When did that happen to you? Why are you vegan?
Well, so that was probably a little over 17 years ago. I've been vegan for about 16 years. So about 17 plus years ago, I had written a lot on relationships and sort of spirituality and how to wake up in your life so that you are your best self. And I realized that I had not really given food much thought. I never really looked under the hood at how food is produced. And I grew up in Doraville, Georgia, small city in Georgia, and I ate everything. I didn't think twice about it. I had chicken fried steak. I had, my dad would throw a steak on the grill once a week. I had my smoothie. You want to hear what my protein smoothie was back
I'd love to. Yes.
It was milk and a little bit of juice, a raw egg, and fruit. That was my protein smoothie. How did I not die? How?
Well, I don't know, but let me interject for a sec, because I think this is great. So, and I want you to continue on with that story. So let's not forget your journey. Yeah. But you mentioned milk as the first thing, right? So I'm imagining that's cow's milk, right?
Yeah, sure.
So, and one of your chapters in your new book, 72 Reasons to Be Vegan, is basically how cow's milk is kind of gross. And I would say it's more than kind of gross. It's like severely gross.
Yeah, it's gnarly.
Like what's wrong with milk?
Well, okay. So milk is from a lactating mother, it's the fluid to give her baby, or baby calf, baby person, whatever, so that little being can put on a lot of weight and develop and all of that stuff. Right. And so here in the modern world, babies are weaned off of mother's milk at 1, maybe 2, maybe beyond that, but pretty much not beyond 2. Right. So the idea that we would drink the fluid as adults of another cow, like say I just had a baby, and so I didn't, but just say I just had a baby.
Yeah.
And too late for that. And I've been pumping my milk, and I have some extra milk, and I call you up and I say, hey, Rip, I have all this extra milk, and I'm going to make an Alfredo sauce from it. Ooh. So do you want to come over? You and your wife want to come over and have some pasta with my milk in the Alfredo sauce? You'd be like, hell no.
Not today. Not today. Maybe another time, Kathy.
It's gnarly. But why we would drink the milk from a lactating cow, a different species, at least, me, I'm taking a shower, I'm eating well, I'm, happy, healthy, well person, but we're eating dairy and drinking milk from this cow that basically has been impregnated unnaturally. When people say, oh, milk, at least it's natural, it's like, I'm like, somebody shoved his arm up a cow's, with a handful of sperm from a bull that they jerked off and delivered it into this cow. I mean, it's the most unnatural, sad thing I've ever thought of. And then this cow becomes pregnant, and she has to be constantly giving milk, right? Constantly giving milk. So she's impregnated over and over and over again. And she's standing on concrete, and she's got, stuff hooked up to her teats. And so the stress of that and the relentless milking, after years, she often gets a very painful infection called mastitis, which is super painful and could be fatal to cows. And because of that infection, when you get infection, you have pus. I mean, that's what the body does. It's all these cells, and it's really pussy. So milk very often is contaminated with pus and blood. I mean, it's pretty disgusting. And so, of course, they pasteurize it and sterilize it and all of that stuff. But I don't care, I don't care how much sterilizing they do. There's blood and pus in that milk at some point. I'm not interested. Yeah. So it really is kind of gross. But we try to talk about things in the book in a very, not traumatizing way. We don't want to traumatize anyone, not too many details, just really short little chapters. And when I say a chapter, I mean like a page or two. And just like, here's the point about this. Just keep that in your mind. And then you realize, oh my God, I'm drinking, a glass full of poison, basically. So. Yeah.
And let me just say that this it's adorable. It is these delicious bite-sized chapters. I've been carrying it in my rear pocket, right? When I
you.
drive, when I go, and at the dinner table, we read 3 chapters yesterday. Each one of the children read one.
I love that.
And on my nightside table now. But it is, anyway, you and Jean did a fantastic job with that book.
Thank you. And this is, it's like, all this stuff, this is a great example. So this book is not only for people who are curious, they've heard the word vegan or plant-based and are like, what's it all about? I mean, is that the same thing as keto? So it's for those people who are interested, but it's also for people like you and me, or people who are already plant-based, that they're getting questions all the time. I don't know about you, Rip, but it's like, sometimes you feel like as a vegan or a plant strong person, you have to be a walking database of the statistics and numbers and all of that stuff. And when people start asking me, well, why exactly shouldn't I have, meat for climate change? What does that have to do with it? So it's for people who are already there, but it's just like, give this to your friends and family when they're asking this, how about the protein, or, what's wrong with eating cheese, or what about fish? I'm a pescatarian. It's like, here's the book. It just answers everything. There's the facts. So it's good for people like us who are advocates of this lifestyle. And so I think because of a lot of your followers and certainly my people, they're already there, but they needed a good tool for advocacy.
Yes. So I want to definitely hit on some of the 72, but I'd love for you to go back to your journey. So you're making this crazy smoothie with the milk and the egg.
Oh yeah, that's right. Okay, so I'm having the fact that I didn't die of salmonella is very impressive. Eating raw eggs like that on a daily basis. But youth, right? So anyway, I ate everything under the sun. I didn't think twice about it. My mother was a great mother. My dad was not, a mean guy because he's doing steak, and I went out with friends. There was nothing unusual about it. So wait, did I tell you? Okay, so I'm having this thought, and I'm playing with my dog, Lotzi, at the time. I started realizing, all of this stuff, but it's in the back of my mind. I didn't do anything about it. So one day I was about 17 and a half years ago, I'm playing with my dog, Lotzi, and she's on her back. And, when dogs kick up their little, feet, and I could swear she was smiling. And I thought to myself, oh, I just love animals. They're just so wonderful. And this little voice inside of me said, well, if you love animals so much, why are you eating them? And I guess it was the voice of my conscience. But I was like, oh crap, that's like the ultimate inconvenient truth, So I just did this thought experiment as I sat there with my dog Lotzi, and I knew her so well. She's not with me anymore because that was a long time ago, but I knew what made her anxious, what made her scared. I knew what made her happy. I knew what made her shake, and I would do anything to keep this dog from suffering in any way, right? I just was so protective of her. I just loved her so much. So I started doing this thought experiment of, what if she was in the slaughter line? Because really, we know there's no difference between a dog and a pig, or a dog and a chicken, or a cow, or whatever. All animals are sentient. They have feelings. They can anticipate. They have fear. They can smell. They know what's going on. They're putting the pieces together. So I started picturing my dog, Lotzi, in the slaughter line, and how terrified she would be. And I thought, oh my God, this is what animals are going through on a daily basis. Billions, and I would be like, now and now and now and now, a lovely animal is going through that right now. And I don't mean to be woo-woo, but that is what Rip brought me into it. I just thought, I do not want to be someone who eats animals. And I'm like, okay, but I grew up eating everything. I currently eat everything. I mean, I'd eat pate, foie gras. I mean, whatever. I ate it all, How in the world am I going to not eat animal products? Because I eat them at least 3 times a day, probably the snacks too, So I thought, I am just going to set my intention again. I don't know how I'm going to get there. but I'm going to lean into it. I am going to have the spirit of curiosity and adventure and see what kind of recipes I can find, and go to the grocery store, spend a little bit more time seeing what's out there. And I'm just going to nudge myself along, and I'm not going to pressure myself. I'm not on a timeline, and I'm just going to lean into it. And so it took me about a year and a half to become fully vegan. And I didn't have a timeline, but it worked out. And that way, because I leaned into it, I didn't, stress myself out so much to do it overnight. It stuck because I found my footing and I got comfortable with it.
When you wrote a whole book on that too, right? The lean, the 30-day program.
Yeah. Well, the lean is also about leaning into plant-based, but it's also about getting lean in your body. So it's for people who are looking to lose weight.
Oh, that's a good double entendre there.
Thank you very much.
What did you notice? So you said you started this about 17 years ago.
Yeah.
And what did you notice from being a 3-time meat eater, including snacks, to now over the course of a year, going all the way 100% vegan?
Well, the first thing I noticed was my energy was just so much better. So my nickname among my friends back then was Slug. They called me, hey, Sluggy. And because I was like a slug, I was always like, let's just stay and watch a movie. Or, I just didn't have a lot of energy. I was sluggish, Yeah. And so that changed. I mean, it's probably from the fiber, because it's straightening out my my blood sugar. I don't have all that saturated fat weighing me down, clogging up my arteries. So my energy, and that was, to me, having good energy is the stuff of life, because you can deal with things if you have alertness and some vitality. And so that was the first thing I noticed. The second thing I noticed is that my skin cleared up. I had always had kind of bad skin, right around here. I had pimples, and always like kind of right beneath the surface, and sallow. I had just just not a good skin tone, and I'm vain. Wait,
weren't you also a Ford model or a model? Weren't you?
I was, and I got sent home from a lot of jobs. And I remember I lived in Paris, and they would go really in close and say, "Oh, le petit bouton, c'est pas bon." And le petit bouton is a pimple, the little button. And so I would get sent home, and I was also too heavy, to be a real editorial model. I was actually I thrived doing German catalog. So, but I was always a little heavy, so I lost a little bit of weight. I didn't need to lose a lot, but I think with plant-based food, you get to where you're supposed to be. Some people need to gain some weight, some people need to lose some weight. Your body finds where it should be, where it thrives. And for me, I just needed to lose a little bit of weight. So I did that. And my skin cleared up. So the vanity was totally scored. Yeah. So that felt really good. But most of all, Rip, I think for me, there is something that happened, that there was a numbness around my heart, because I think that in order to eat animals, because by now everybody has some idea of where this stuff is coming from. You're not under a rock. You have some idea, even if you really haven't investigated. So there has to be a certain amount of numbness. And I think I had a certain amount of numbness, because I was like, yeah, I'll have some foie gras, and I'm a big steak eater, being all macho and everything. And so what happened is, once I wasn't eating animals, I didn't have to be so shut down, and something opened up, and now I feel so connected in my friendships and relationships, with people. I just feel more connected to life, because I don't I haven't numbed myself out, and that feels really good, because every day I get to live out my values, and I have pretty basic values, kindness, mercy, being a good steward of the planet. And so I get to, every day that I eat this way, I get to sort of practice what internally makes me feel good. So there's a contentedness that I have that I never experienced before, that feels really good.
Yeah. Well, it's nice when you're living in complete alignment with your values, right? And living living what I think is your truth.
Yeah.
Which you now feel, and it feels really nice.
Yeah, it really does.
We'll be right back to the interview, but first, I want to talk about cooking with ease. If you know anything about my family, you know that we love to cook simple, Plant Strong meals, and I want to virtually invite you right into our kitchen with the Plant Strong Meal Planner. So many of my family's favorite recipes are right there for you to make for your own families, or even make together like we do. Earlier this year, we launched a special promotion, and we've been really surprised at how much you've enjoyed it. For the first time, we offered a 14-day free trial to test drive our Plant Strong Meal Planner so that you can come in and really kick the tires before deciding if it's right for you. Exciting news, we're bringing it back so more of you can take advantage. Simply visit mealplanner.plantstrong.com today and enter the code STARTFRESH to redeem your 2-week trial. Check out the database filled with hundreds of recipes, see instructional cooking videos, make and save personal menus, and shop using our adaptive grocery list. You can even load and save your own recipes so this meal planner becomes your wingman or wing woman in the kitchen, saving you loads of time and ensuring you use up all those vegetables. Again, free trial for the first time, and for a limited time, go to the show notes or visit mealplanner.plantstrong.com and enter the code STARTFRESH. Yes, you have to enter a credit card, but you won't be charged if you cancel before the trial ends, and that's simply a click of a button. Enjoy the test drive and get cooking. First, let me say, in preparation for this, I looked at, your Instagram, and it's fabulous. I just can't believe how insanely organized it is. Like when you look at it and, the way you have your quotes and then the photos, and they're all perfectly aligned. I'm like, somebody is
It's not that hard, Rip. It's just one day is a picture, the next day is some writing, the next day is a picture, the next day is some writing. It's not that hard.
I get it, but it's for somebody like me, it's impressive looking. So I just wanted to know that. But you have a quote there, and this to me is very appropriate. You say, "I care less about being happy and more about living my truth."
Yes, and that's really true. I think there are people, and I don't fault anyone just for having the vivaciousness of life and just wanting to taste everything and just be happy and, party and all that stuff. I feel very content if I'm living my truth, if I'm being my truest self, and which is probably pretty dorky but introverted and all that stuff. And if I'm telling the truth and I'm having real connections, I care more about that than being in the right place and, knowing all the right people and all that stuff and having fun. I just want to feel like I have a meaningful life. Yeah. And I think that for me, a meaningful life is having good connections with the people that I know and having a great conversation. Like this is a really great conversation that I really appreciate. And that makes me really happy. But it's a different kind of happiness. It's a contentedness, it's a being in my skin.
Yeah. Well, I hear you, sister. I hear you.
Yeah.
And all that. And I think it's one of the reasons why we both connect so well with Gene Stone, right? I mean, Gene, he's a really wonderful conversationalist. And not only does Gene, have a lot of great things to say, but he also listens really well.
So he's so damn smart, and he's so instinctive. He's very, very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, he really is. He pulls things out of you. It's like, I
Well,
don't know why I'm telling you all my secrets, but I am,
well, and that was the brilliance of Gene, especially in my first book, the Engine 2 Diet, because we were trying to figure out like, well, how do we start this book off?
Yeah.
And then Gene was like, tell me just the scariest, worst moment ever as a firefighter, like the most crazy fire you ever made.
Oh, wow.
And I wrote it all up, and that's how we began the whole thing. And it was like
Amazing.
everything fell into place. But
amazing.
So you have a chapter in 72 Reasons called Martinis, Coffee, Fun. So you do like to have a little fun in it.
Girl likes her vodka. What can I tell you? I mean, clearly I didn't come into this just for the health. I love a vodka martini on a Saturday night. I love a glass of wine during the week. I love a cup of coffee in the morning. And, I think the point of that chapter was that more things are vegan already than you even know. It's like you do not have to be living, in a monastery with a white robe and eating sprouts. It's just not like that. You can actually have fun. My favorite restaurant in Santa Barbara is Lucky's Steakhouse, because they make if you're into martinis,
yeah,
I mean, it's perfection. It's like just the little ice crystals at the top, and the glass is perfect, and it's really nice. And all my friends love to go there, but they didn't have anything that was vegan there. So I talked to the manager, and he said, Kathy, this is a steakhouse. We're not a vegetarian restaurant. I'm like, I know, but I would spend money here because I'm coming for the martini. But if you had like a burger, so he put an amazing tofu dish on just to test it out, and it did really well. So yeah, so I like to have a nice Saturday night cocktail.
Another thing that you have on your Instagram feed that really, I liked, it said, what I like about people? They're dogs. And I always am interested to know, okay, I wonder what this family's dog is like, because their dog usually says volumes about the person's family. So is what you mean by that?
Yeah. Well, it's like animals are often much easier to deal with than humans. They tend to be very simple. And my dog is just, she's great in every way dogs are, but she's particularly neurotic, and I just love her for that too. It's like, I love all of her craziness. I love her insecurity. She came from a bad place. I love her neediness. I just all of that stuff. And it's teaching about me, because I think, well, gosh, I love her for all her, flaws, which they're not flaws. So, we don't have to be perfect. We're likable, even though we are neurotic, or, needy, or whatever it is. It's like, we learn a lot from animals. I've learned a lot from my dog, but, it's funny because another post that I did, I said, I'm an imperfect vegan. And I don't know if you saw that, but
I saw that. It's got like 800 comments. I mean, people just flock to it. Why do you think that is?
Well, the interesting thing is, I got a lot of positive comments, but I got a lot of really nasty comments too. And this is why I love sort of talking about the ish, that you can be vegan-ish, or, whatever, just leaning into it. Because there were some comments because I told a story about how I have an old pair of Uggs that are 20 years old. I bought them way before I was, into all of this stuff. And I don't wear them out in public, but I wear them around the house because they're cozy, and I just never got rid of them. So I told that story, and I said something about, when I was first vegan, I think I said like 5 years in, but it was actually a year in, I just craved a tuna sandwich. I was like, and I'm being honest with my people, because I'm all about, let's just tell the truth. And I said, I really craved a tuna sandwich. So I went into a deli and I got a tuna sandwich. My favorite lunch of all time was a tuna sandwich with potato chips and a Diet Coke.
Yeah.
So I went home and I opened the tuna fish sandwich, and I took a bite, and I was like, meh, it wasn't even good. It was like fishy
Yep.
because it's tuna fish. And so I talked about it in the spirit of, listen, we all kind of make bloopers along the way and, have a little thing that we go out on. And that doesn't mean that you are, so horrible you get kicked out of the club or something. And so I posted about that, and I had some of the most nasty comments from these hardcore vegans saying that I was a murderer and I set veganism back by decades and I should be deeply ashamed of myself and, all of this stuff. And I thought, I have a thick skin when it comes to this stuff because I know myself and I know I'm, compassionate and kind. And so nobody can tell me that I'm a murderer and that I'm, an asshole. So I was okay with that, but it was very good for me to see because I think some people, their exposure to veganism is to someone like that, who is shaming and bullying and, militant. And they think, oh my God, I have to be perfect. Like overnight, I have to be perfect or I can't do this. And I think it's really important for people to know that you don't have to be perfect. You just be as vegan as you can be. Mm-hmm. And hopefully, you'll find your footing and you'll find your way. And for me, it's like, I'm completely vegan. And I think I am, but I'm joyous about it. I love it. But if I had to switch like that overnight, I would have been miserable and I couldn't keep it up.
Yeah. So you probably got some unsubscribes, right?
Probably, but that's okay. Cause I mean, I think other people were like, yeah, I'm imperfect too. And then they would tell me what they do, once a year, my mom gives me this birthday cake and it probably has eggs in it or whatever. It's like, it's okay. It's okay. Just do the best you can do.
Well, I think I heard or read a quote, I think it's in 72 Reasons to be Vegan, where you're much more about progress than you are perfection.
Yes, exactly. And I take that from 12-step program because I used to go to Al-Anon.
Yeah.
And they always say progress, not perfection. And I just love that. It's like, do the best you can. You do not have to be perfect. It's like, I think it was Victor Hugo, I'm not sure, who said, perfection is the enemy of the good. Yeah. And that's really true. If like we're going to hold out for things to be perfect, well, guess what? Decades will go by because that's not going to happen. So we might as well start now and do the best that we can and keep reaching for the better.
Yeah. So it's obvious that the more people that you can get to go vegan, the more animals that will be saved. Mm-hmm. And is it fair to say that I mean, yes, we know that it's, you're helping the environment and it's the healthiest way to eat, but is it fair to say for you, your core, pillar is to save the animals?
Well, for me, it's my core pillar is to live according to my values to the best that I can. And that would mean kindness and mercy. So it's not showing mercy to just like let that animal go through that because I have a hankering for a pork chop. That's not showing mercy. And so yeah, I do think about the animals. And we worked with a scientist, Noah Moore, who's just brilliant. And he ran all these numbers. Yeah. And so someone who goes vegan saves 207.5 animals per year. And do we know, is that like cows, pigs, and a lot of them are fish because they're smaller animals, so it's like if you're going at it from an ethical place, you want to give up the smaller animals first because there's that many more units of suffering. Chickens are smaller than cows. So if you're going to give up one animal at a time, you want to give up chickens before you give up cows, because the units of suffering are so much more with the smaller animals. Right. So a lot of that is our fish, but fish, as we know, feel pain. They're sentient. They absolutely feel, pain and misery, just like other animals do. So they're worthwhile to me too.
And you also have a chapter in there along with fish feel pain, but also I think it's chickens like to cuddle. Is that?
Chickens like to be cuddled.
I mean,
Yeah.
do they? Do they really? I mean,
They do. Well, here's the thing about animals is that some of them are cranky and some of them are lovable. Some of them are needy. Some of them are, jealous. So just like with people, there's all kinds of, some person loves affection, another one doesn't like to be touched, because they're traumatized or whatever. So there's all different kinds, but they kind of generally do like to be cuddled.
Yeah. And when I was talking to Gene, I had Gene on the podcast. We talked about how some cows like to listen to
classical music.
Classical music, and really adore classical music.
They didn't go for the hard rock. They weren't into metal.
Yeah, that is funny. Well, I had an old girlfriend who had 2 cows. She had a sheep, she had a donkey, she had chickens, and every morning these 2 cows would come up to the house, and each one had a very distinct personality. And literally, we fell in love with these cows, the chickens. And it isn't until you're really around a lot of these animals day after day after day that you realize that each and every one of them has their own distinct personality.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Like you've said a number of times, they're very sentient. They are very caring, feeling, wonderful.
Yeah. It's pretty amazing. And that's what we like to do in the book. There's some of that feel good stuff, like, pigs are super smart and chickens like to be cuddled. And then there's the stuff of like, this is why you might want to reconsider eating fish, and this is a story about longevity. And so there's a balance. The book was written for the ADD person. It's like, it's not organized in sections. It's like, here's a little bit of this and here's a hit of this. And, so it's just kind of, you go in and find what's interesting to you. You don't have to read it from beginning to end. It's just little sections of different information.
Well, it's perfect for today's kind of microwave mentality, right?
Yes, well put.
Hit it out of the park.
I never heard that expression. That's great.
You guys have a bunch of chapters on sex, right? So basically, you have one on dude, your erections, and then it's hashtag better longer, right?
Yeah.
That sounds pretty good. You have one for women. Right? Gals.
Written by.
Gals, your clitoris. Is it clitoris or clitoris?
I think either way goes.
Okay. But, gals, your clitoris, and then it's hashtag orgasms.
Hello. Do you know who wrote that chapter?
I know who helped. Yes. My sister Jane, right?
Yeah. She was fantastic. She just explained the whole biological process of getting aroused and orgasm.
Yeah. Well, and so both those reasons to me are why vegans have better sex.
Hello. I mean, if nothing else, like, why not do it for that, right? Better circulation. Same thing that clogs up the arteries that go to your heart, your brain. Same thing goes to the tender bits. And so you get that clear circulation all over your body. It just kind of works all around.
Absolutely. Let me pivot here and go to, so many people these days think they need to be taking $100, $200 worth of supplements every month, right? When you find when you're eating a plant-based diet, you need to take supplements?
Well, studies would show that actually people do not do as well with supplements. Like, they actually suffer other kinds of things. So it's, the most amazing thing about nature is that everything is out there. You eat a beautiful, colorful diet, you're getting all kinds of phytonutrients, vitamins, minerals, you're getting all the fiber and all that stuff. You really don't have to worry about supplementing. As long as you're eating enough calories, as you know, you're going to get what you need. Vegans do need B12 because B12, as you know, comes from the dirt and the digestion. So animals eat that dirty stuff and it happens in their system. And then when we eat their flesh, we get the B12. But we live in a world where everything is so clean now. So we're not eating blueberries that have, dirt and muck all over it. So we do need to supplement with B12. But even adults who are meat eaters don't absorb B12 very well. So they would probably do well to take B12 as well.
Yeah.
So I just do a little squirt under my tongue.
Yeah. You do it daily?
Daily. I put it right on my vanity where I'm about to, put my makeup on, and so it reminds me, I'm like, oh yeah, do a little squirt, and that's it.
You take any other supplements besides B12?
I don't. You?
I don't. I'd say once a year I get kind of my levels checked on my vitamin D and, calcium and all that stuff. And they're always just, perfect or
amazing.
Closer to, high, which is good. My B12, I mean, there was a year where I didn't supplement on B12 and I still was like 925 and the range is 250 to 1200. But I think it's because I did so much Red Star nutritional yeast. I did a lot of well-fortified plant-based milk. Stuff like that.
Yeah. Oh, that's true. When that stuff is fortified, so you're definitely covered. And who knows? I mean, maybe you don't. I'm just like, I'm going to hedge my bets and take it. It's not harmful, so I'm taking it.
And then there's a lot of kind of noise out there about, taking different kind of omega-3s, the DHA and the EPA.
Mm-hmm.
But I haven't messed with any of that. I just, I do my ground flaxseed meal, my seeds, my walnuts, my green leafies, my soybeans. And I think
you're good. You're good. Yeah. I mean, look at you. Come on. You're good.
You're good. No, you're
I told my doctor, every time I go in, she takes my blood. She goes, "This is really good. You should publish it." I'm like, I just wish you would start telling your patients, to eat more plant-based, because it really, if people knew how good your levels are of all of these different things, there's like inflammatory markers, all of these things that show up in your blood. You just thrive with this kind of food.
Yeah. Let's talk beans for a second, because I'm sure you love beans. I love beans. I mean, I like to have beans if I can, at least twice a day. You guys have a whole chapter, beans can help you live longer, but there's so much noise around beans right now, especially with the plant paradox and the lectins and stuff like that. What's so good about beans and how can they help me live longer?
Well, the funny thing about the lectins and everything is so interesting. It's kind of like soy. It's like, let's get out in front and, sort of muddy the water so people will be confused that maybe they shouldn't. I don't know. Maybe I'm a little conspiracy theory, but I think there's some weird industry tampering. I don't know, but beans have been around, staple food for the people who live the longest in the world for many, many centuries. I mean, the blue zones are Dan Buettner, the National Geographic founder of the blue zones, and the places in the world where people live the longest are the healthiest and also kind of the happiest, eat beans every day. They eat soybeans in Okinawa, all kinds of beans in Sardinia, and Loma Linda, they're eating chickpeas and all kinds of stuff. So beans are, and Dan would say that beans are a superfood. Like if you have to find one kind of food that's a superfood, beans would be it. And they're so inexpensive. They're so full of fiber. 1 cup of lentils is 17 grams of protein. 1 egg is only 6 grams of protein. 3 of it in the white, 3 of it in the yolk. So if you're only eating the whites, you're getting 3 grams of protein per egg. It's like, it doesn't make sense. And then 1 cup of lentils is so small, you're probably having a few cups of lentils. So that's a lot of protein that you're getting. Plus you're getting all the minerals and vitamins and fiber that comes along with beans, where eggs, you're getting lots of cholesterol, you're getting saturated fat, you're getting all that inflammatory protein, and you're not even getting enough of what you're saying that you want, which is protein. So
yeah. Well, with the eggs, I love saying, and I think I first heard this from Neil Barnard, is there's only 2 things wrong with the egg, the yolk and the white.
That's great. Oh, that's great. Yeah. I love that. Yeah. I love that. That's good.
You talk about how this lifestyle is an ongoing adventure.
Mm-hmm.
It's the last chapter. It's chapter number 72. How is this an ongoing adventure for you?
For me, so when I became vegan, I was out at dinner with a friend, and we were talking about it, and she points down at my feet. She said, "What are they?" And I said, "Feet." And she said, "No, what are you wearing on your feet?" And I said, "Shoes." She said, "What are they made of?" And I said, "Leather." And she said, "So don't talk to me about vegan if you're wearing leather." And then I was so thrown off, and I was like, then I realized, I'm like, that's where progress, not perfection, came along. And it's like, I'm in my process. I didn't think about that yet. I, may not give up leather. I don't know, but I think sometimes people find an excuse, like, if you can't do everything, don't even do anything. And so I was a little defensive. And then I thought, I would like to sort of be someone who didn't wear animal stuff on her feet. I would like that. But Rip, it was a lot harder to get rid of my Manola Blahniks than it was to get rid of the steak. I mean, girl liked shoes. I loved shoes. I loved my shoes. So I was like, I'm just not quite ready to do that. And so what I did is I went about it in the same spirit as I did about the food. And that is adventure. Like, I'm going to make this like a sport. Like, what kind of stuff could I find that is not made of leather? Things that I like, shoes that I like, brands that, have cool shoes. And so I didn't do it like that, but I started, next time I needed a pair of boots, I made it my business to find a pair of boots that were not made from leather. And little by little, I just got that out of my life. But that's what the chapter means. It's like, you can take this as far as you want. You can keep going. We only talk about food in this book. This is not about being hardcore vegan, like with everything. But the last chapter it's an ongoing adventure. Take it as far as you want. If you want to keep going and learn more about that stuff, you may want to keep have nothing from an animal. Yeah. And that's kind of cool.
And it's interesting, when I started this in 1987, I did it first and foremost primarily because I wanted to be the best athlete that I could be.
Right.
I was eating this way to fuel myself in a way that was that would allow that to happen. And then, it was, oh my God, I can prevent heart disease and all this other stuff. And obviously the research from my father at the Cleveland Clinic.
Yeah.
And then it was really my kid. Once I had kids, I realized, oh my God, we're eating all these animals that we talk about in the Little Red Barn and Charlotte's Web and Noah's Ark. And oh my God, how that is so wrong. And now look where we are now. I mean, back in 2010, 11, 12, I was meeting with a lot of people about what can we do for people to eat this way, because we're burying this world, right? I mean, climate change, it's just disaster. And so, I mean, you're right. This is an ongoing adventure in learning all of our truths. And it's what's funny is, to me, it all comes back and intersects, and it's plants. It's plants.
That's right. That's right. That's great. I love that. Really? And you say that so perfectly. That's great.
So since you and Jean have written this book, and because I haven't written 9 books, I've written 4 books, but in each one is oh my gosh, what a process. And it's usually about 2 years or so. Do you have any more books on the horizon right now?
Oh my gosh. I always say no, and then I end up writing another one. So I think that the next book that I write, even though I don't want to write another one, but as I said, I don't know how to do anything but write, so I probably will. I think it's going to be something more personal, something like, I kind of started dabbling around just how to move forward in your life. It's going to be more of an emotional thing than a vegan thing. It's just going to be basically how to cope, how to
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just sort of in my mind, but it'll definitely be a more emotionally driven book.
Yeah.
Because veganism is all about the facts. So much is about the facts. Like I said, you have to be a walking database. It's like I'm an environmental scientist, and then I'm a medical expert, and then I'm an animal welfare, and I have to know all this stuff, which is why we wrote the book, so we didn't have to remember all that stuff. But I think where I live is more of an emotional, connected, sort of conceptual person. So I think I want to write something like that, but I don't know yet.
Yeah. Well, if that's what's percolating, then, go with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So since you've written 72 reasons to be vegan, and, you had to send it in, and okay, we're done at 72. Have you now been going, oh my God, I can't believe we forgot this one or this one, and it should have been 85?
No, because when we started, Gene has one that he wanted to add, which is like ridiculous. I don't know if he told you about it, but I think we just stopped when, it started to feel like it was repetitive or something. And he was really rooting for this other reason. Did he tell you what it was?
No, but I've got one or a couple that you need to add for your next edition.
He had something sci-fi about an alien. If an alien were to come down, and I don't know. It was. I think you have to be into sci-fi to understand it. So I was like, no, we're good. And I'm also about let's not overwhelm people too. Let's just get the basics down here. Keep it simple. Keep it digestible. And there could always be volume 2. You never know.
Were you and Gene always copacetic, or was there a time when you guys kind of went at it as far as, no, we're not going to have that, or have that, or yes?
We never went at it. Definitely not. We're very simpatico. So sometimes he thinks I write like a girl, so
you are.
So, because it's by both of us. And so there were times when he'd be like, Kathy, no, a guy is not going to want to read that. You know what I mean? And I was like, but that's, so our personalities kind of with each chapter, because we split up the book, he wrote half, I wrote half. And so, some of them are more emotionally driven than others, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I think another reason, there's so many reasons, but doing the dishes is so easy when you eat plants.
I know. It's so great. And you don't have to wear a hazmat suit in the kitchen.
There you go. No hazmat. That's number 73. No hazmat suit required.
Right? All the salmonella. It's like when you're cooking chicken and eggs and all this stuff, it's like you better put on your gloves, your hood, all this stuff, because and I'm a bit of a germ thing. But it's like, oh my God, I can just picture the germs crawling over the counter and contaminating. And it's like, don't have to worry about that. It's so great.
Yeah. Kathy, this has been spectacular. Thank you for spending some time on the Plant Strong podcast with me and all the listeners. You are a beacon of light, of hope, of inspiration. Thank you so much for following your truth, even though it's not necessarily the easiest path. It's the one that makes you the most happy and helps so many other people and animals and the planet.
Thank you. Yeah, throwing the planet in there. Thank you for that, Rip. I love our conversation. I really, really enjoyed it.
Yeah, thank you. All right. Can you follow me? Peace.
Turn
it around. Engine 2. Keep it plant strong.
Plant strong. Love it.
I am so happy to have been the one to introduce Kathy and Gene to each other so many years ago. And not only have they developed a wonderful friendship, but now they have written this great book together. And the subtitle speaks for itself. Why plant-based? Why now? These aren't questions. These are bold statements, and I'm happy to have been able to introduce many of these reasons with you over the last 2 weeks. We'll be back next week, but in the meantime, if you want to learn more about the book or any of our resources, simply visit plantstrongpodcast.com. Thanks a lot. Thank you for listening to the Plant Strong podcast. You can support the show by taking a quick minute to follow us wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Leaving us a positive review and sharing the show with your network is another great way to help us reach as many people as possible with the exciting news about plants. Thank you in advance for your support. It means everything. Have you had your own Galileo moment that you'd like to share? What happened when you stepped into the arena and shed the beliefs that you thought to be true? I'd love to hear about it. Visit plantstrongpodcast.com to submit your story and to learn more about today's guests and sponsors. The Plant Strong podcast team includes Carrie Barrett, Lori Kordowich, Amy Mackey, Patrick Gavin, and Wade Clark. This season is dedicated to all of those courageous truth seekers who weren't afraid to look through the lens with clear vision and hold firm to a higher truth. Most notably, my parents, Dr. Caldwell B. Esselstyn Jr. and Ann Cryle Esselstyn. Thanks for listening.